Good evening, everybody. My name is Louise Connolly, and I am the head of the Educational Consultants Department, Events Manager and Teacher Trainer at Macmillan, Iberia. And I would like to welcome you all to the last round of the online Teachers' Days. For those of you who attended the event in April, which was aimed at pre-primary and primary, I would like to welcome you back. And for those of you who are joining us for the first time, a very warm welcome to you too. I would like, obviously the most important thing now is for me to introduce our first speaker, Carol Reid, who needs very little introduction. All of you have come across Carol in many contexts, both face-to-face events, the online event last year. She gave a really inspiring talk on the magic of story time. And Carol is an award-winning author, 500 classroom activities for primary, also of Tiger, the best-selling primary course here in Spain, and her latest publication, which is the new pre-primary course, Big Wheel, which is doing really well, and you will see from the presentation how attractive this course is. And today, Carol would like to talk to us about developing a whole child approach to learning English. So welcome, Carol. Welcome back.
Thanks, Louise, and thank you very much for that lovely introduction. And this afternoon, what we're going to be looking at is what is meant by a whole child approach and practical ideas and activities to integrate a focus on the whole child with learning English in a holistic and engaging way. And the first thing that I would like to do is for us to explore together what is a child approach, it's a whole child approach. So if you'd like to put your ideas and have your say in the chat box now, we'll see what some of the things are that you come up with.
Okay, so as Carol has just said, write in your answers in the box that will appear on your screen now. Short answers, 1 word or 2 word answers will be fine. What do you think a whole child approach is?
I'm looking forward to seeing your ideas on this.
Well, I think the word whole is key, isn't it?
Absolutely, it definitely is. And definitely, yes, looking at all aspects of children's development.
Because when I think, can I say something about it?
Sure.
Yeah, when I think about this, I think, well, different skills, different aspects, that it's not just linguistic. I think we have being from the ELT world, we have this tendency to think primarily about the linguistic development.
I think that's absolutely right. Yeah. And I think actually we'll go on to have a look at what a whole child approach is. And I think what it is exactly, to pick up on what Louisa said, is that we focus on all aspects of children's development. So, for example, social development, their emotional development, their psychological development, their physical development, creative development, cognitive development, and language development. And I think the important thing here is that if, as ELT teachers, we just focus on language, we're missing opportunities to enhance children's development in all aspects. And in that way, when we do that, we also make them more successful at learning English too. And let's have a look how a focus on whole child development can be illustrated through something as simple as a song. I'm going to play you a video of this song now, and I want you to think how we can use that to develop all aspects of children's development. So let's go with the video now.
5 little ducks go swimming one day over the pond and far away. Mummy duck says quack, 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 but only 4 little ducks come back. ducks go swimming one day, over the pond and far away. Mummy duck says, quack, 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 but only 3 little ducks come back. 3 little ducks go swimming one day, over the pond and far away. Mummy duck says, quack, 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 but only 2 little ducks come back. 2 little ducks go swimming one day, over the pond and far away. Mummy duck says, quack, 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 but only 1 little duck comes back. 1 little duck goes swimming one day, over the pond and far away. Mummy duck says, quack, 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 and 5 little ducks come swimming back.
I hope you enjoyed singing and acting out that song at home. And I think you can see in many ways how that song develops the whole child. In social terms, the children are joining in and coordinating their movements with others. In emotional terms, there is the pleasure in participating in the song. In psychological terms, children relate to the whole idea of the little ducks getting lost and separated from their mummy. In physical terms, they're doing actions in time to the rhythm of the song. In cognitive terms, they're learning to count and also to associate numbers with the ducks and the symbolic representation of the numbers. In terms of creative development, the children are probably acting out the song in creative ways themselves. And in terms of language, of course, the children are learning numbers and having exposure to other language in a very natural way. But of course, whether this is really a whole language activity depends on the focus that we give to it. And if we just concentrate on learning numbers, for example, we're missing an opportunity to develop the whole child as well. So what I'd like to do now with you is to actually explore an acronym of the whole child, of the key ingredients of whole learning. And the first letter is W, and W is for well-being. Well-being is a concept that in a way is quite difficult to describe. It's not just a state of being happy. And of course, often when we're happy and maybe we get things we want, that's not necessarily good for us. That well-being is a physical and mental state that covers a number of different areas. It includes all the things that you can see up on the screen now. I'm not going to go through these one by one, but you can see how they range from being safe in the top right-hand corner to feeling confident in the bottom left-hand corner to getting encouragement and praise. And I think the question is, who has the key to children's well-being? And we all know that actually, at the end of the day, it's parents and carers who have the key to children's well-being. But we, as teachers, have a spare one. And I like this quote very much that I've adapted from one in the Veronica de Andrés book article on affect. And the quote says, parents have the key to children's well-being, but teachers have a spare one. In the original quote, it's self-esteem, not well-being. But I think that the same things apply. And so what is key for us as teachers is the kind of strategies that we can use to foster and develop children's well-being. And I'd like to have another have your say moment now and to ask you to contribute and to tell Louise and me on the chat box what kind of strategies you think we can use to develop children's well-being.
Okay, so again, we'll give you a couple of seconds to reply to that. Again, key words, you don't need to write complete sentences.
So I think perhaps I'll start off explaining, and actually when ideas come in, then you can tell me.
Them to you.
I mean, I think key is the whole area of effect, so that we create a warm, friendly rapport and show sensitivity and interest in the children, that we explain things clearly and well and in appropriate child-friendly terms, that we model and demonstrate thinking processes and activities that need to be done, that we also give positive feedback and encourage children.
That's one of the comments, praise for achievement.
Absolutely, that's lovely, praise for achievement. And that we ask good questions, that we don't only ask questions to check vocabulary or understanding, for example, but we ask questions to encourage and further children's thinking. That we also encourage children to reflect on and think about their learning, and that we balance our focus on whole child development and the kind of pre-academic skills and outcomes that we also need to work on to prepare children for their journey through education and moving on later to primary school. So we need to closely monitor their actions.
One more point was from somebody I think is worth mentioning, listening to their needs.
Absolutely, listening to their needs. I think the whole area of listening is completely crucial, and it only is by listening that we understand our children and know what they want. So thank you very much for that. Okay, so moving on now to the next letter in whole, H. H is for head and heart. And I think here what is key is the importance of engaging both for effective learning. And if we start off by having a little look at head, the whole idea of cognitive tasks to develop important thinking skills and pre-academic skills in readiness for primary school. For example, learning about the real world in a little activity like this, where children are learning to identify the difference between food that grows in the garden and food that doesn't. Here the children are going to categorize the different foods by colouring in the circles. So what we're helping them to do then is also to use thinking skills to verbalize their thinking. So potatoes grow in the garden, or just potatoes. We're not necessarily expecting them to say the whole sentence. And so we're developing thinking skills as well as vocabulary and language skills as well. And also other thinking skills, and one that I'd like to highlight here is creative thinking, because I think a lot of us often think our children are so small, so young, they know so little English that they can't be creative. But of course they can. They're often very creative. And one idea, as you can see here on the screen, when you're telling a traditional story, such as Goldilocks and the Three Bears, why not ask the children to draw a picture to show what happens next in the story? And it's amazing the kind of creative ideas that children will come up with, from Goldilocks and Baby Bear having a party in the woods, to Goldilocks taking Baby Bear to the police station, for example. And that creativity, we can then listen to the children's ideas, albeit in their shared or first language rather than English. But this is very motivating for the children and developing them as whole people rather than just the focus on English. And the other H, of course, is heart. And heart here is to do with social and emotional learning, something that is key in the development of young children starting preschool. And social and emotional learning to do crucially with the way children understand their own feelings and emotions and learn to manage them, and to do with the way they establish positive relationships with other people and learn to maintain and handle those relations. And so understanding feelings, understanding their own feelings, and also being aware of other people's feelings. So in a little activity like this, with emojis that very young children often understand more quickly than we do. Okay, and here we have yellow is happy, blue sad, red angry, green calm, purple sleepy, and grey scared. And we might introduce these feelings using flashcards and then through a song. And we'll just listen to that song now. And even at home, what you might like to do is show by your faces the emotions that you hear in the song.
Space. Values lesson. Listen and sing, "Sometimes I'm happy."
Sometimes I'm happy. I'm happy, are you? Sometimes I'm sad. I'm sad, are you? Sometimes I'm calm. I'm calm, are you? Sometimes I'm scared. I'm scared, are you? Sometimes I'm angry. I'm angry, are you? Sometimes I'm sleepy. I'm sleepy, are you? We all have feelings. Can you see? I'm glad you're you. I'm glad I'm me.
So in a little song and an activity like that, children are also, well, they're learning the word sometimes, because they're learning that actually we don't feel happy all the time.
No, absolutely not.
Our moods and feelings change. And in a little activity like this, we can ask children to colour the spots underneath the emojis which show the feelings they sometimes have. And this also means that children are learning that not everything has a right answer, that there is personal choice and decision making here. And in the face below, we can ask children to colour the face to show the feelings that they have now. And it's quite interesting when you do this, because children don't only colour the face all yellow or all green. Very often they use a mixture of colours. For example, they might colour the face partially yellow because they're happy that they've got a biscuit with their lunch today, and they might colour partially blue, they're sad because mummy can't come and collect them from school today. And so actually in this way, children are learning to identify their feelings, and identifying their feelings is the first stage of managing them and of recognising them in other people too. Another area of social and emotional learning that's very important with this age group is the whole area of learning to cooperate, learning to work together as part of a team and harmoniously with other people. And of course, one of the ways that we can achieve this is by introducing and working on projects with this age group. Now, projects seems a very ambitious thing to be doing with 4- and 5-year-olds. And I think the secret here with projects at this age group is to ensure that children are doing something individual in order to make a contribution to a collective outcome. And through working in that way, for example here, they might be making a Play-Doh model of an item of food they've learned, an apple or a banana, and they then put them together to make a whole plate of food. And we, as teachers, make the point that the children could never have achieved such a beautiful project on their own, and that it's by working together with others that it's so successful. We can also reinforce the idea of cooperation through actually, for example, doing a little rhyme and getting children to work with a partner. So Louise, can I ask you to do this with me now?
Yes.
So we're just going to go, let's work together. Let's cooperate. I help you, you help me. It's great. It's great. Okay, lovely, fantastic. Okay, and actually through working together, we're actually living the cooperation because we're learning.
Yes.
And we were too, because
I was watching you. I wasn't quite sure with the hands, so I was really working.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So we're actually living cooperating as well as learning that word for it. Okay, so moving on now to our next letter, O. O is for opportunities. And I think it's really important that we give children opportunities in our classes to, for example, contribute in divergent personal ways. Of course, lots of our activities have right answers. They're responding in convergent ways. They're repeating things. But we need to ensure that there are opportunities for personal, divergent responses as well, because that is key to engagement and to developing the children's imagination and thinking skills, confidence and enjoyment. We need also ensure that children have opportunities to take risks, to be playful, to be creative. This might be, for example, playing with flashcards or playing with the puppet or doing a little activity where they pretend to be the teacher using the review page of the book, for example. Similarly, we want to give our children the opportunity to be autonomous, to be independent, to make choices, to take decisions, to begin to do these things themselves. And this can be in very small ways at first. It can be to do with getting their materials in an autonomous way. It can be to do with choosing how to colour or complete a sheet, maybe with paint or with crayons and so on. Also, to opportunities to cooperate and work together as a team in the kind of way that we just saw with projects. And the last thing, that we need to give our children opportunities to learn values and life skills. Values at this age very much to do with getting children to reflect on their own behaviour and apply decisions and thinking about their behaviour to themselves. This may be to do with things like being kind, being helpful, tidying up, putting your books away, and so on. And also life skills that they need beyond and outside the English classroom, things such as, learning to put on your coat or learning to put on your shoes. And values education at this age, I find that a good start for developing values is actually through songs and stories. But I think we have to be aware that values education, it's not a tick box. You don't introduce a value and children learn it. It's part of a long, ongoing process, and you need to come back again and again to remind the children of the values. Let's look at an example now of a song which is very much fomenting the value of making an effort and trying to do things for yourself, of being independent. And any of you who are familiar with the work of Carol Dweck will realise that it's very much trying to create in children a growth mindset rather than a fixed mindset. A growth mindset whereby they believe that their own efforts and persistence at doing things will lead to results, rather than a fixed mindset where they have the kind of attitude, I can't do this, I won't do it, I can't, and I'm not even going to try. So here is a song now, and I've put it for you on the screen here so that you can see the kind of support with actions that you get for when you're teaching the song. And I'd also just like you to, as I'm going to play you the song now, if you're at home, you can do the actions with someone else or by yourself. And if not, I'd like you to think about what are some of the things you can do if you try. For example, I can plan my lessons, I can control my classes. Okay, so let's listen to the song now.
My body.
And we'll do
Values
the actions.
lesson.
Okay. So
Right.
Louise, you can
Listen
join in with
and
me.
sing, I can do it if I try.
I can do it if I try. Try, try. Yes, yes, yes. I can put on my coat. I can learn and play. I can put on my coat every day. I can do it if I try. Try, try. Yes, yes, yes. I can put on my shoes. I can learn and play. I can put on my shoes every day. I can do it if I try. Try, try. Yes, yes, yes. I can cut with scissors. I can learn and play. I can cut with scissors every day. I can do it if I try. Try, try. Yes, yes, yes. I can do it if I try. Try, try. Yes, yes, yes.
Okay, so with a little song like that, I can do it if I try. Okay, with a little song like that, I can do it if I try. Please notice the language there. You know, I can do it if I try, but we're not really focusing on grammar here. It's about chunks, and children have no problem at all understanding that. I can do it if I try. And next time you see them, you know, working on an activity and maybe having a little difficulty of them with it, you can just gently remind them of the song. So values education, as I said, it's not a tick box thing, it's a process, and we're just starting the process in preschool. Okay, let's move on then to our next letter, which is L, and L is for language. And the reason I've put language here, because it is such a crucial part of the whole child's development, whether in their first language or their shared language, and of course also in English. And I think it's also super important because we are language teachers, and although we're educators as well, we do have a responsibility to develop children's language and to lay those foundations that are going to be as good as possible for their journey learning English as they go through school. And of course, one of the things we do at preschool, well, and in primary as well, is tell children stories. And stories provide a perfect opportunity for developing children's language through when we have repeated narrative patterns, when we put key communicative language chunks that they can join in repeating. And I'd like us just to have a look at a story now, okay? And this is a story which is actually called Let's Go by Bike, okay? And here is the family. We have Mimi turning round to look at her dad there, and Dylan and the parents, and they're off to see Grandma and Grandpa. So I'm going to just tell you the story now, and while I tell you it, if you'd just like to think of the kind of key language there that we might go on to work on with the children, so it becomes part of their productive language repertoire as well. So the story very simply goes like this. Mummy, Daddy, Mimi and Dylan are going to Grandma and Grandpa's house. Oh, great! I love Grandma and Grandpa. Let's go by bike. Oh, yes, please. I want to go by bike too. Come on then, let's go by bike. Hooray! Thank you. Oh dear, it's raining. We can't go by bike. Oh no, I've got an idea. Let's go by car. Oh yes, please. I want to go by car too. Come on then, let's go by car. Hooray! Thank you. Oh dear, look at the wheel. We can't go by car. Oh no, I've got an idea. Let's go by train. Oh yes, please. I want to go by train too. Come on then, let's go by train. Hooray! Thank you. Oh dear, the train is full. We can't go by train. Come on then, let's go home. Oh no, I want to go to Grandma and Grandpa's house. Me too. Please, Mummy. Please, Daddy. No, sorry. We can't go to Grandma and Grandpa's house today. Let's go home. Aww. Oh, look. Here's Mrs. Cat and the school bus. I've got an idea. Let's go by bus. Hello, Mrs. Cat. Hello, Mimi. Hello, Dylan. Hello, Mr. and Mrs. Meerkat. Hop on. Oh, thank you, Mrs. Cat. We want to go to Grandma and Grandpa's house. No problem. Oh, thank you, Mrs. Cat. Hello, Grandma. Hello, Grandpa. Hello, Mimi. Hello, Dylan. Come in and bring your friends. It's time for a snack. Oh, thank you, Grandma. Thank you, Grandpa. Come on, everyone. Hooray! Okay, so that's the end of our story, our little story. And I'm sure you're thinking at home about the key language there, being things like, let's go by bike, I want to go by bike, me too, come on, etc. And I think in terms of our language development with very young children, we have an opportunity for transition from the language of the story, which children have understood and also participated in. If we had a real class of children here, I would have got them to join in saying some of the key words there. But we can transition to communication through a song. And so what I'd like to show you now, because it's very motivating sometimes, actually, first of all, I would sing the song with the children myself using the audio. But we're lucky enough to also have animated versions of the song that the children can perhaps see later on. Personally, I like to introduce the song myself so that they can copy the actions and so on. But we're now going to have a look and see how that transition to communication works. And you'll notice the chunks of language that the children are learning and repeating. So we'll listen to the song now.
Come on then, let's go by bike.
I want to go with you. I want to go by car. By car. Oh yes, please, me too.
Come on then, let's go by car.
I want to go with you. I want to go by train. By train. Oh yes, please, me too.
Come on then, let's go by train.
I want to go with you. I want to go by bus. By bus. Oh yes, please, me too.
Come on then, let's go by bus.
I want to go with you.
So through listening to and learning a song like that, children have an opportunity to naturally internalise the language, and this prepares them for acting out the story or doing activities where they spontaneously and freely use the language of the story. And of course, they will do this at different levels. Some of them will actually learn all the language off by heart. Some of them will only be able to produce the vocabulary. But that's fine. And we can do things like little flashcard games, for example, where children in pairs or threes decide, let's go by bike. And then they go round the circle pretending to go on a bike in a kind of free play activity. So language there is really important. And through the way we develop language, we're developing all those other aspects of the whole child as well. So moving on now to our last letter in whole is E, and E for evaluation. The importance of working with a learning cycle where at the end of learning we have a review in order to begin to develop children's metacognition and reinforce and remember everything that they've learnt and achieved in the unit. And so here is a little practical example where children have been learning about farm animals, and they can draw the animals that they know, and we have a little activity here that children enjoy doing very much, where they actually work in pairs, and one pretends to be the teacher. Okay, because that's what Mimi likes doing with Dylan. So the children pretend to do that, and they love correcting each other when they're doing that. So the idea of review and what they can do there, the things that they've achieved in the unit, that's really important. But again, this is a process, and 4-year-olds will find this quite challenging at first. They need the support of you explaining what they should do in their shared language. But gradually, as you do it regularly, they will understand the importance of being able to reflect on their own personal progress. So, reflecting on what we've done in this session, we've looked at what's involved in whole learning, and we've explored an acronym of the word with W for well-being, H for head and heart, O for opportunities, L for language, and E for evaluation. And we're here now for a few minutes for you to reflect and discuss. So if you have any questions, please do send them now.
Yes, so we'll give you a couple of seconds to write in any questions or comments that you may have about the talk, about the ideas that Carol has just put forward. and even comment on any classroom experience as well that you may have.
Yeah.
It's always lovely to hear from you about your own experiences of doing certain kinds of activities or working on, you know, a variety of skills and aspects of developing the child as a whole being, no?
Definitely.
Yes.
Definitely.
So we'll wait for your comments. I personally found it very inspiring to, I think your presentation of looking at, you know, having the acronym and, you know, focusing on well-being. Your point about well-being was very interesting, actually. And
I think
your
it's
quote,
crucial,
it's
it?
absolutely,
It
yes.
underpins
everything. And the
Yeah.
comments that came in earlier from people, then the have you says about listening to the children
Yes.
and kind of taking into account
Yes.
their feelings.
Yes, so that they feel valued.
So they feel
and
valued.
cared for.
Absolutely.
I think that's really fundamental
Absolutely.
for building their
Absolutely.
self-concept
Because
and
that's the
self-esteem.
beginning, isn't it? Without that,
Absolutely.
it's very difficult then to
Yes.
move forward.
Yeah, and I think in terms of the way we work with young children, like the Five Little Ducks song I showed you earlier, is actually for us as teachers to
Yes.
reflect and think, any activity we do in the classroom, how can we ensure that this is developing English, of course,
Yes.
but doing all these other
Yes.
things as
Yes.
well, that it's a question for us to
Absolutely.
ask ourselves.
Absolutely, and all kinds of activities that we
Exactly.
do. What's the
Any
purpose of
activity.
this, and
what's the purpose?
Exactly.
It's language, of course.
Yes.
But how are we integrating the
Absolutely.
development of language with all these
Yes.
other
You
aspects?
really got that point across really well, eh? Okay, we'll have some comments. I'll just relay.
Yeah, please do.
Well, one person is thanking you very much for such a motivating talk.
Thank you.
Really interesting presentation. Thanks a lot. Question, do you use any Spanish at any moment or just English all the time? But I think you mentioned that you do.
I think it's very important
Yes.
to. I think that the children's first or shared language, because some children, for them, Spanish may already be a second or third language, but Spanish may be the shared language of the classroom, or indeed any other language that is the spoken language of where you are. And that it's important to see children's language as a resource for learning, not something to be left at the door and denied the child. I mean, children are in the process of learning their first language. Something that I love to do, for example, you know, if children are learning a new word, I might, and I know that I've got children from 8 or 10 different countries and cultures in my class. I might say, okay, we're learning the word lion. How many other words do we know for lion? And it's wonderful to ask the children, and they feel so proud telling you the word. So I definitely think that children's first or shared language is a resource to be valued and not denigrated. Quite the opposite.
And will contribute to building self-esteem.
Absolutely. Building self-esteem and developing the whole child.
Yes.
Because the child will grow up with a multilingual identity.
Yes.
That is partly English, because they're starting to learn, I mean, not English in the national sense, but has in the English language as part of their identity.
Yes.
And their own as well. So yes, a very good question. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much. Just one other question is from somebody who says about bad behaviour, when children behave badly, how to deal with that. I mean, that's integrated into...
Well, I think that is a very good question, and also a very big question. We could have another whole webinar on it.
Yes.
But I think one of the main things that I would say is try not to focus on negative behaviour, try to focus on positive behaviour, because very often that negative behaviour is to do with the child wanting and needing your attention and wanting to get your attention. And I think what you over time want to try and convey is that the children get your attention by behaving well, not behaving badly. But this is a process.
It's a process.
But, and I know it's easier said than done. And it's for us as teachers, it's very easy to just, you know, if a child is naughty, often if a child is naughty, we end up focusing all our attention on that child rather than the 23 other children who are being good.
Exactly.
So I think we have to try and look for ways the children are behaving appropriately and positively, and show children that we value that just as much as their achievement in English.
And just one question about phonics. How do you work phonics into this approach? I presume it's...
Well, I think phonics is very much a personal choice thing. I think that some teachers feel that they want to do a lot of phonics work and they're going to integrate it. For example, you know, in a story that we've just done now, you know, we might focus on the B. So, or, for example, we might, you know, take that. I would say about phonics that that meaning should drive the work that we do on phonics, not the other way round. That it's important that that the children are working with language that they know and has been used meaningfully, rather than with discrete sounding out words that are in isolation and that don't have any meaning for them.
That's a good point, yes. And finally, just one question. Big wheel is would it be a good method for 2 hours a week if you have classes for 2 hours a week?
Oh, I think so. I mean, the good thing about Big Wheel is that we do have it in 2 editions. So we have it in the standard edition and in the plus edition. And the other thing is that because it is modular and you can do the units in any order you like to fit your particular circumstances, you might find that, you know, if you use the standard edition, you did 5 units rather than 6 or something like that.
And you can hop on and hop off.
You can hop on and hop off, exactly.
Yes.
And in the standard as well, there are the projects are optional and additional, as are the culture. Whereas in the plus version, where children are doing more. So yes, I think it's
very flexible. That's wonderful. It's a good question. And thank you, and thank you everybody for your questions, for your participation in this talk. It's been really inspiring. Thank you so much, Carol. It's been a real pleasure. And I hope to see you again next year.
Yeah, lovely. Yeah.